Hello everyone and welcome back to our course. In this lecture, we're going to begin our project of stock market analysis and visualization. First off, we have to fetch our stock data. So here I am in Google Colab at colab.research.google.com, my free online code editor, and I'm going to be coding in Python. And I'm going to fetch my data. All right, so to fetch our data, first let's make a list of all of these stocks that we want to fetch. So I'm going to make here stocks list, and I'm going to create here a list or an array, and I'm going to create a list of strings, and each of these strings is going to correspond to one of the tickers for the stock that I want. For example, Facebook is FB, and Amazon is AMZN, Netflix is NFLX, and Google is GOOG. All right, so these are the four stocks I am going to be using for this project. Of course, you can use any stocks that you'd like. These also happen to be the FANG stocks. All right, so we have a list of all of the tickers for these stocks. Next up, we have to loop through all of these stocks. So let's make a loop. For every stock in the stocks list, we are going to grab that stock. So we're going to call globals at the current stock and assign it to equal a new data reader. All right, so in order to use data reader, we do have to import it from Pandas. So let's include that at the top of our code cell here. I'm going to import from pandas underscore data reader. I'm going to import the data reader class. And we do have to import pandas as well, because before we can import from Pandas data reader, we need the whole Pandas library. Pandas is very commonly used as a library to help with data science and machine learning. All right, so now we can instantiate this data reader class. For this data reader, this is going to allow us to put in a ticker and a website, and then we will get stock information from the specific website. Globals is going to take the stock tickers and create it into a global variable. So if we call the ticker, it'll display a data frame. So first, let's fill in this data reader constructor. First, we have to pass in the stock that we want to get. Then we're going to pass in the website that has the stock data. In our case, we're going to use Yahoo Finance. All right, and after that, we also are going to pass in what we want to get. And well, what we want to get is going to be the actual stock itself. And we have to tell it the end and the start times. So let's make here start date and also end date. Okay, you can just call them start and end. So start and end, these represent the date range that we want for the stock. Do we want 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, etc.? So let's define those variables. We're going to define start and end. Let's start with start. Okay, we're going to use date time in order to define a date for the starting date. So in order to be able to use date time, we do have to import it. So at the top of your cell, make sure that from date time, you import the date time module. All right, and because we're using Google Colab, we don't have to install pandas or datetime. It's already pre-installed, but we do just have to import them. If you're using a different code editor, then take note that you will have to install pandas and possibly datetime. All right, so let's define the starting date. All right, so we can do a year ago. To do that, we'll take our current day, which is datetime.now, and we are going to then subtract 1 from its year. So we can get the year property from any date just like that and subtract 1 to give us 1 year ago. Then we can get the current day's month as well. And finally, we can get the current day's day. So just like that, we'll get the same day and the same month, but 1 year earlier. So we're going to have 1 year of stock data to work with. Now let's also define our ending date. So we'll make a variable called end, and for that we'll just use datetime.now, which is just today. So that means we'll go from a year ago until today. We will get the stock data. All right, so once I run this cell, because I'm calling globals here, this means that it's going to take all of the stock tickers FB, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. And it's going to allow me to call the ticker as a global variable. So let me show you. I'll run this code cell, and then I'm going to make another code cell after that. And we can get the results for our stocks. Okay, great. So the cell ran successfully. Now I can call any of these stocks. For example, I can call FB. And I can use the describe function to get its contents. And look at this. We get this data frame returned where we have some statistics about the stock. And each column represents every column from that stock. The high price, the low price, the opening price, the closing price, the volume, and closing. All right. And we can get the description for every single stock. Because we used globals here to create a global variable for every single stock, that's why we can just reference the stock by its name. For example, let's try Amazon next. Let's just print out Amazon this time and run that code cell. Okay, so this time we didn't call describe, so we don't get this nice data frame. We just get all the contents. So you can see that we have the date, we have the high, the low, more columns, volume, and close. So we have 252 rows of data. And as well, we have 6 columns. So we have 252 rows because that's every day that the stock market was open. It's not open on the weekends. And we have 6 columns because those represent all of the features we have. We have here high, low, open, close, volume, and close. So those are 6 features, which is why we have 6 columns. And of course, we have the date, which refers to the date of all of the prices. And we have a whole year's worth of stock data on all 4 of our stocks. Awesome. Okay. We can also get information from the stocks. For example, let's do Netflix next. I'll make another code cell. This time I'm going to call info instead of describe. And we can see here with the info function, we get more information about the actual data frame. So we can see it's a class of pandas.core.frame.dataframe. So we've created what's known as a pandas data frame. These are very commonly created. They take data in the form of a CSV file or similar, and they turn it into a data frame which is more suitable for data science. And that's what the data frame looks like here. You can see with the describe function, we get some statistics about the data frame. All right, and that is the info function. So we can see we have here the pandas data frame, and that is because we use that pandas data reader. And when we call this data reader constructor, we create a data frame for each stock. And that's what we have returned here. So we can see that we have the number of entries and the range of the dates. We also have the column count. We get the number index of the column. We get the column name. The non-null count means the number of rows that are not null at that column. And we have the data type. So every data type is a float, meaning it can have decimal places, except for volume. It's an int because volume is just the count. So it's not in halves or quarters, so we don't need decimal places. We also get the memory usage as well. So we are using 13.8 kilobytes of memory for this data frame. Awesome, and that is how we can fetch stock data into our project. Next up, we are going to learn how we can visualize some of this data. So we're going to visualize our features of our stocks. Join me in the next lecture where we will continue our project.